Jason, it does still appear, though it's going to be by a much smaller margin, if at all, but it does still appear that the GOP is going to take the House, though no one's actually projected it yet. And you don't want people to discount how significant that would be.
You're right. I don't think it should be discounted. I mean, given Joe Biden's low approval rating, given, the record high inflation, at least for the past 40 years, given the chaos at the border, given the uptick in crime, most people expected the Republicans to have a much better night than they did. But they did retake the House, Megyn. That is not a small matter. They will be head of the committees. They have subpoena power. I don't see any major legislation that the Biden administration wants to advance going anywhere without the consent of House Republicans. That's a big deal. The American people voted for a check on the Biden administration. Republicans would have liked a bigger check, but there's still going to be a check, even if it's by a small amount. And I expect to see, investigations coming out of the House. Hunter Biden, the Afghanistan withdrawal,
Fauci,
COVID response. So, it's a very big deal that Republicans will control one house of Congress again.
Mm-hmm. And not to mention the border and potentially Merrick Garland and what he did to those parents. I've heard Kevin McCarthy mention that too. So yeah, there could be multiple investigations, which I do think in the same way that the GOP cheers on Ron DeSantis down in Florida for taking on these causes that mean a lot to Republican voters, that kind of thing could alienate the Dems, but it could energize the GOP base.
Oh, absolutely. And they also took out some big names. Sean Patrick Maloney lost. In New York, the congressman who's head of the campaign arm of the Democratic Party lost his race. That's not a a minor thing.
Remarkable.
So I think there's a lot of good that came out of last night, despite the fact that it wasn't as good as Republicans would have liked. Republicans also increased their margins with minority voters, which always worries the Democrats because they rely so heavily on those voters to win elections. But Republican support among both Blacks and Hispanics increased yesterday, and particularly among the men in both of those groups. So, you would have expected, given these other conditions, to see bigger Republican gains than we saw. But the Republicans are now going to be a check on the Biden administration at the end of the day, and that's a big deal.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you think back on how we got into this mess with inflation, and it really is directly related to all of the spending that they were doing, the Democrats, when they were in control of the House and the Senate and the presidency. And that's stopping now. That's over, and to the extent Joe Biden keeps trying to hand out goodies like this student loan forgiveness, quote unquote, program, there'll be legal challenges to try to stop him. But if he does it the old fashioned way, where you're actually supposed to get spending approved by Congress, they're going to stop him.
All the legislation is supposed to originate in the House, but this is old-fashioned stuff we learned in grade school, Megyn. None of that happens anymore. But
right.
But you're right, and according to the exit polls, inflation and the economy were the top issues for voters. They were a bigger deal to voters than abortion was, although abortion did come in second, according to the exit polls that I saw. It turns out, I think, that those special elections we saw earlier this year over the summer and those referendums turned out to be a lot more predictive than people thought they would be. We saw some polling after that about wrong direction, right direction, and we thought that would work to the advantage of Republicans and sort of cancel out the abortion issue that Democrats have been trying to use. That didn't quite happen, but the economy did turn out to be, the big issue. So Republicans were right, I think, to stress that. And again, they ended up taking back the House. So, I think that's not, Biden had a good night and that things weren't a lot worse, but he now knows that he's going to have a very, very difficult job pushing his agenda through over the next 2 years. Republicans can make that very, very difficult for him now.
And I feel like we've skipped past the significance of Florida officially being red thus far in my first hour and 8 minutes on the air today. Florida actually being red and not purple is huge. Florida has, I think after redistricting, they now have 30 electoral seats, right? It was 29, now it's 30. Anyway, they're one of the top 4 states in the union when it comes to richness of electoral votes.
Right, and as you're suggesting, if it's not a swing state anymore, that's a very big deal. I think Trump only won it in 2020 by about 3 points. DeSantis won his reelection bid by almost 20 points. That's a huge deal. And of course, it's also a huge deal that it's Ron DeSantis who did this, someone who's been in Trump's crosshairs recently, along with the governor of Georgia. Both of those were big winners last night. And the Trump wing of the Republican Party did not do very well. And that's also something that I think is going to be part of this postmortem. We'll see what happens. But I think there are some very, very interesting developments on that front, particularly because if you look at states where you had both the sort of traditional Republican on the ballot, as well as a Trump-backed candidate. I'm thinking of somewhere like New Hampshire, where Governor Sununu won easily, but Bolduc, the Senate candidate, lost. Or again, Georgia, where Governor Kemp handily defeated Stacey Abrams in the gubernatorial race, but Herschel Walker is struggling. Even in a state like Ohio, where J.D. Vance won and it was backed by Trump, his margin was not nearly as large as Governor DeWine's, who won re-election in a walk. So you really there have a case where you can compare how traditional Republicans did in some of these states and how Trump-backed candidates did in some of these states. And there was a very mixed bag among the Trump candidates. And again, getting back to Florida, that it was a very big night for DeSantis. And we'll see if this is going to be a turning point in terms of the party's relationship with Donald Trump going forward.
Like many people, I am eating healthier these days, and that is why I love good olive oil. It's a treat, and you need it, so why not get the best? And by good olive oil, the best, I mean fresh. Olive oil packs the most flavor and the healthiest nutrients when it's fresh from the farm. But that's the problem with supermarket olive oils. They're not fresh. They're not right from the farm. They can sit on the shelf for many months growing stale. That's why I like my olive oil direct from small, award-winning farms, thanks to a guy named TJ Robinson, also known as the olive oil hunter. When I first tasted TJ's Farm Fresh oils, I was like, this is going to be like a regular oil. What do you mean? What's the difference in olive? Wrong. That is when I realized how important fresh is. You, like me, you will fall in love with their vibrant, delicious flavors. They are delicious on salad, on veggies, pasta, meat, fish, you name it. And as an introduction to his fresh-pressed olive oil club, TJ's willing to send you a full-size bottle, it's worth $39, of one of the world's finest artisanal olive oils for just $1 little to help him cover shipping. Best of all, there's never a commitment to buy anything. You can cancel your membership at any time. So you go and get your free $39 bottle for just $1 in shipping and taste the difference that freshness makes. Go to harvestfreshnow.com, harvestfreshnow.com for a free bottle and pay just that little itty bitty dollar in shipping. harvestfreshnow.com. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.